So I'm a first-generation American. My father immigrated to South Carolina from Tehran, Iran, and I was born into a Muslim family. And I'm also the product of a two-time broken home. My father left my mother when I was 2. My stepdad left the family when I was 14. And so my likelihood of going to college and graduating and being the first person on my mother's side to graduate from college was minimized. My wife is an African-American woman, and we have a wonderful baby girl that was born early in the spring. I wanted to make the recording because I wanted to shed light into the darkness of lies that critical race theory was not being used into the classrooms. And because the University of South Carolina silenced me and dashed my hopes of having a career in education, I wanted to not be silenced. I wanted the truth to get out. I wanted the truth to get out to the district. I wanted the truth to get out to the parents who deserve to know what their children are learning. But most importantly, I wanted to protect the future education and success of South Carolinians. Because if we can address the problem, we can correct it with better education, with a focus on classical education, whether it be through school choice or classical education, professional developments in schools or in the University of South Carolina. That can happen. We can fix this problem, but we need to remove the cancer from the body of education before we can make any progress. I wanted to get the truth out there to parents. Parents deserve to know the truth. And our youth, our young generations of students all over the nation, but specifically in South Carolina, especially in Lexington County, they are being given this pedagogy in their classrooms against their parents' wills, against their better good wills, and it's wrong. It's a moral evil that needs to be stopped. I'm saying that social construction, lived experience or voice, intersectionality, material determinism or microaggressions, but especially endemic racism, is being implemented in the teacher preparation programs and teachers who are coming out of the University of South Carolina. Or there are professional development nonprofits that are going into schools and they're showing teachers how to put into practice, critical race theorists call this the praxis of CRT, because CRT, critical race theory, is transdisciplinary, meaning it's able to transfer its disciplines. In order to get into the College of Education, of course, there's an application process. You have to score a certain score on the SAT or the ACT, at least when I went there. After your sophomore year, you have to have a certain score on the praxis or the ACT, SAT. To stay in the professional development program, to become a teacher. You have to really succumb to the ideology. There were students that started classes with me in the fall of 2019 that dropped out because, whenever they're being told that white Christian heterosexual men are the problem in this country, they feel marginalized. So I went to the University of South Carolina, and when I was there, I learned that critical race theory was being implemented into the teacher program. And as a teacher at the University of South Carolina College of Education, I was taught how to implement a culturally relevant pedagogy or a culturally responsive pedagogy in my classrooms. And the ideology that underscores culturally relevant pedagogy is done by a woman named Gloria Ladson-Billings. At the University of South Carolina, we're given her literature. Gloria Ladson-Billings' literature of culturally relevant pedagogy is given to us, and we study her works. But we study other works by other activists in order to get our ideology into the classroom, minimizing on state standards, not using the state standards as the main emphasis of our teaching, but rather creating a series of lesson plans with the ideology in full throttle, ideology that is overwhelming the state standards. Because of this, the state standards in the eyes of those who want to teach the tenets of critical race theory or a culturally relevant pedagogy, the state standards come from white middle-class businessmen who do not know the academic needs to make our students, particularly the students of color, successful. And so those state standards, because they come from the hegemony that is now in power, that oppresses minorities and others' minorities, they are minimized and they are not used at the high level in which they should be in the state classrooms, in our classrooms in our state. They are overshadowed and eclipsed by ethnic studies, critical race studies, gender studies, and climate change hysteria. Yes, absolutely. That was my first semester at the University of South Carolina. The brave and bold dialogues hadn't even been instituted yet. The brave and bold dialogues are the trainings or the modules that every transfer and freshman student has to undergo, has to complete before they continue their first semester at USC. And they talk about microaggressions, they talk about privilege, they talk about all the counter narratives that you would expect to hear from a critical race theorist. When I went to my internship, I tried not to rock the boat, because if you get into an argument with your mentor teacher, they can cut the legs from underneath you by the end of your education by not giving you a recommendation. If the mentor teacher doesn't think that you're in agreement with them socio-politically, they just won't write you a recommendation to get a job. And then you won't be able to do the thing that you went to school for. And so when I went into the classroom for the first time, I saw a big box filled with books from Ibram Kendi, his book Stamped. And you saw a huge quote of Ibram X. Kendi on the classroom walls. But before that, before you even walk in the classroom, on the classroom door you see book titles: Project 1619, Color of Law, Lies My Teacher Told Me. And you don't feel very comfortable walking in there because you don't feel like you're walking into a classroom that's going to educate you about the history that every American deserves to know. So after I spoke out against critical race theory publicly, which is after I graduated, after I completed the teacher internship program, after I fulfilled all the qualifications to get my teaching degree with a focus in middle level education, middle school, and focus in history, I spoke out about critical race theory because I wanted parents to know the truth of what was happening in Lexington County schools. My coaching teacher found my website that I made to inform parents about what was going on in Lexington 1 schools. He found it, he reported it to the University of South Carolina. The University of South Carolina called me in their office, and for about an hour and a half, dashed all my hopes of becoming a teacher. They threatened to rescind my degree, and they said that they would counter and challenge my state certification if I applied. Before he withdrew his recommendation for employment, I asked him what he thought about anti-racism and culturally relevant pedagogy. He said it was great, but because of state law, he had to be careful. And we had to find creative ways to implement culturally relevant pedagogy and anti-racism into the classrooms. And he asked me if I had any ideas. We can counter the counter narratives by not funding these nonprofits that train our teachers, that also hire or they try to recruit co-conspirators by the principals or the assistant principals and the coaching teachers. We could also make requirements for teacher candidates to undergo positive training for American history. What is being done is that we are hiding under the blanket of critical race theory. We are stealing every American's birthright to know our Western heritage. Western heritage, of course, comes from the word inheritance. Every American inherits the great philosophy, logic, and literature of Western culture. And we're stealing their birthright whenever we implement counter narratives into the classroom. And it's wrong.